What would you think if I told you that a woman's silence is one of the most profound and terrifying forces in the psychic world of a man? Not because of what it contains, but precisely because of what it does not. A woman's quiet is a vacuum, a pristine and empty canvas onto which a man, often unknowingly, will pour the entire contents of his own unexamined soul. He will paint her with the brilliant golds of his idealized mother, the searing reds of his unrequited desires, and the deepest, darkest grays of his own shadow self. He is not seeing her. He is seeing the missing pieces of himself, the ghosts of his past, and the archetypes that haunt the cellar of his unconscious mind. And you, in your stillness, become the oracle he consults, the goddess he worships, or the demon he must destroy. The tragedy is that none of it, not a single brushstroke, was ever about you. It was always a frantic, desperate dialogue with himself. This dynamic, ancient and primal, is the source of immeasurable pain and confusion. It is the invisible drama that unfolds when a woman chooses to withdraw, to observe, to simply be, and in doing so, hands a man a mirror to his own inner chaos. He resents her for the reflection, blaming the mirror for the image it shows, never realizing he is the artist, the subject, and the sole critic of his own terrifying masterpiece. The mechanism at play is a fundamental concept in Jungian psychology, projection. Specifically, the projection of the anima. The anima is the unconscious feminine aspect within a man's psyche, an inner archetype built from his earliest experiences with the feminine, his mother, sisters, and the cultural tapestry of womanhood he has absorbed. When he encounters a woman in the flesh, particularly one who does not immediately fill the space with her own words, opinions, and definitions, his anima rushes to fill the void. If his inner feminine is underdeveloped, wounded, or unintegrated, he will project either an impossibly perfect goddess or a devouring, treacherous witch onto you. He will fall in love not with you, but with the sudden, blissful relief of seeing his own soul image embodied. He will adore the way you listen, not realizing you are silent. He will praise your mysterious depth, not realizing it is the echo of his own abyss. You become a vessel for his salvation fantasy. But when you inevitably deviate from this projected image, by having a different opinion, by asserting a boundary, by simply being a sovereign human being, the projection shatters. The goddess falls from her pedestal, and the man feels a profound sense of betrayal. He isn't betrayed by you, he is betrayed by his own illusion. The rage that follows is not directed at the real woman standing before him, but at the phantom who failed to live up to the impossible script he had unconsciously written for her. This is where his shadow spills forth. The shadow, as Jung defined it, is the repository of all that we repress and deny about ourselves, our insecurities, our rage, our shame, our secret cruelties. When a man's anima projection fails, his shadow seizes the opportunity. The silence that was once a canvas for his idealization now becomes a screen for his darkest fears. Your quiet is no longer mysterious, it is menacing. Your stillness is not peaceful, it is plotting. He will accuse you of thinking things you have never thought, of having motives you do not possess. He is, in essence, having an argument with his own shadow, and you are simply the unfortunate bystander in the crossfire. Have you ever been in a conversation where a man is reacting with extreme emotion to something you haven't even said? He is responding to the subtitles he is projecting onto your silence. He is fighting the ghosts of women who wounded him before, the echo of his mother's disapproval, the sting of his own inadequacy. You cannot win this argument, because you are not a participant in it. To engage is to validate his delusion, to agree that the canvas is, in fact, the painting. The only path to freedom, The only way to preserve your sanity is to understand that his accusations are confessions. Every flaw he attributes to you is a disowned part of himself, screaming for acknowledgement. Why does a woman fall silent in the first place? Often, this withdrawal is not a calculated strategy but an intuitive, self-preservative retreat. It can be a trauma response, learned from a childhood where speaking one's truth was met with punishment or dismissal. Silence becomes a sanctuary, a place where one cannot be wrong, cannot be attacked, cannot be held accountable. In the face of a partner's escalating emotional dysregulation, a woman's nervous system may instinctively choose the freeze response, a state of quiet hypervigilance. She is not plotting, she is surviving. She is observing, gathering data, waiting for the storm to pass. This silence is a shield. However, to the man caught in the tempest of his own projections, this shield is perceived as a weapon. He interprets her retreat as a withholding of affection, a passive-aggressive maneuver, a judgment. He pounds on the door of her inner world, demanding entry, demanding a reaction, because her lack of engagement feels like a profound narcissistic injury. He needs her reaction to regulate his own emotions. He needs her to play her part in the drama so he can feel sane. When you refuse to take the stage, the entire theater of his psyche threatens to collapse, and his fear of that collapse is what fuels his rage. He needs you to be the monster so he doesn't have to face the one within. The pain of this experience for a woman is a unique form of psychological erasure. To be loved for a fantasy is isolating, but to be hated for a projection is soul-crushing. You stand before him, a living, breathing human being with a complex inner world, and you realize with a cold horror that he does not see you at all. He is interacting with a hologram, a specter born of his own psychic wounds. You try to speak, to explain, to insert your reality into his narrative, but your words are like stones thrown into a phantom, passing straight through. He filters your every utterance through the lens of his projection. If he has painted you as a saint, your attempts to show your flaws will be interpreted as charming humility. If he has painted you as a villain, your most sincere apologies will be heard as cunning manipulation. You begin to question your own reality, your own sanity. Am I being withholding? Am I being cruel? This self-doubt is the poison that seeps in. It is the beginning of the erosion of self. The ultimate gaslighting is not when someone tells you what you feel is wrong, but when they tell you who you are is wrong, based on a character they themselves invented. This is the moment where the wisdom of the Stoics becomes not just a philosophy, but a lifeline. This is where you must learn to anchor yourself in a reality that is not dependent on his perception. Enter the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher who wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." He urged us to build an inner citadel, a fortress of the mind impervious to the chaos of the external world. When a man is projecting his unhealed wounds onto you, he is laying siege to your psychological well-being. Your inner citadel is the part of you that remains untouched, the part that knows the truth of your own character, your own intentions, your own worth. His accusations, his rage, his misguided adoration, these are the catapults and battering rams of his own inner war. You must understand that they have no power to breach your walls unless you allow them to. You must retreat into this citadel and observe his siege from a place of safety and detachment. From this vantage point, you see his actions not as a reflection of you, but as a tragic display of his own suffering. Epictetus, another great Stoic, taught that we must distinguish between what is in our control and what is not. You cannot control his projections. You cannot control his past trauma. You cannot control his interpretation of your silence. What you can control is your response. You can control whether you allow his fantasy to become your reality. Your power lies not in convincing him he is wrong, but in so thoroughly knowing your own truth that his fiction becomes irrelevant noise outside your gates. The journey from being a passive canvas to a sovereign being requires a descent into your own psyche. It demands your own form of shadow work. You must ask yourself, with radical honesty, why have I allowed myself to be this canvas? What part of me finds a strange comfort, a familiar pain, in being the screen for another's drama? Often, the woman who attracts heavy projectors has an unintegrated animus, the masculine principle within her own psyche. Her animus, if underdeveloped, may be weak at setting boundaries. It may seek validation from external masculine figures rather than providing a stable, internal source of strength and direction. She may have been taught that her value lies in her ability to be receptive, to be a muse, to be the calm in a man's storm, rather than in her own wholeness. The work, then, is to develop this internal masculine energy. To build a strong, discerning animus that can act as a gatekeeper for your soul. This animus is not aggressive, it is clear. It does not argue, it states. It is the part of you that can look at a man's projected fantasy and say, calmly and firmly, this is not me. This is yours. I will not carry it. This is the beginning of true individuation, the process of becoming a psychologically whole and indivisible individual. It is the alchemical process of integrating both your feminine and masculine energies, so that you no longer need an external man to validate the one or project upon the other. This integration transforms your silence. It is no longer a passive, reactive retreat. It becomes an active, conscious, and powerful tool. It is the intentional silence of the woman who knows her own mind. This is not the silence of fear, but the silence of observation. It is a boundary. When you are confronted with a projection, this new silence is a refusal to participate in the delusion. You do not offer up explanations that will be twisted or apologies for crimes you did not commit. You simply hold your space. You become a calm, unshakable mountain, and his emotional storm can either break against you and dissipate, or he can choose to move on in search of a more turbulent landscape. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, wrote extensively about tranquility, a state of inner peace that comes from a mind that is undisturbed. This is the goal. Your silence becomes the moat around your inner citadel. It is a filter that separates his chaos from your peace. Those who are psychologically healthy will respect this space. They will become curious, they will ask questions, they will wait for you to share your truth in your own time. Those who are mired in their own unconscious turmoil will become enraged by it. Your silence, in this way, becomes the most effective litmus test for a man's emotional maturity and self-awareness. It effortlessly separates the men who want to connect with you from the men who merely want to use you as a screen. How do you recognize when you are being painted upon? The signs are often clear, though they may feel intoxicating at first. One of the most significant indicators is the speed and intensity of the idealization. He barely knows you, yet he proclaims you are the one, a goddess, unlike any other woman. This is not love, it is the projection of a savior fantasy. He is not seeing you, he is seeing the answer to his problems. Beware the pedestal, for the fall is always brutal. Another sign is his resistance to your reality. When you share something about yourself that contradicts his perfect image, a flaw, a past mistake, a different opinion, does he listen and integrate this new information, or does he dismiss it, ignore it, or even punish you for it? A man connecting with a real woman is curious about her complexities. A man interacting with a projection is irritated by them. The most telling sign, however, is the narrative he builds around your actions. He will create elaborate stories to explain your motives, your thoughts, your feelings, without ever actually asking you. Your silence becomes fertile ground for his fiction. He will tell you what you are thinking, why you are upset, what you secretly want. When you find yourself constantly having to defend your own inner reality against his fictionalized version of it, you are no longer in a relationship, you are a character in his one-man play. This dynamic is so difficult to escape because it often creates a powerful trauma bond. The cycle of idealization and devaluation is psychologically addictive. The highs of being his goddess are so intoxicating that you become desperate to reclaim that status when he inevitably casts you as the villain. This intermittent reinforcement creates a powerful biochemical bond, a craving for the moments of approval that feels like love but is, in fact, an addiction to validation. Within this cycle, there is a deep, primal urge to explain yourself, to make him see the real you. You believe that if you can just find the right words, the perfect explanation, the spell will be broken and he will finally see you for who you are. This is one of the most dangerous fallacies. You are trying to reason with an unconscious process. You are attempting to have a logical conversation with a ghost. The more you try to explain, the more ammunition you give him to twist and use against you. Your words become just more raw material for his projections. The desperate need to be seen and understood by someone who is fundamentally incapable of doing so is a direct path to insanity. The first step toward breaking this bond is to abandon the hope that you can control this perception. You must mourn the loss of the relationship you thought you had, which was, in reality, a relationship with his fantasy. True freedom begins when you stop trying to correct the painting and simply walk away from the canvas. The practice of stoic detachment is crucial here. Epictetus was clear: people are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. A man's projection is a thing that happens in the external world. Your disturbance, your pain, your anger, these arise from the view you take of it. You take it personally. You believe it is about you. The work is to practice observing his emotional outbursts, his accusations, his idealizations, as if they were weather patterns. You note them. His shadow is surfacing now. The storm of his insecurity is rolling in. You do not become the storm. You do not stand in the field and allow the lightning to strike you. You retreat to your inner citadel and observe it from the window, knowing that you are safe and that the storm is not of your making. This is not about becoming cold or unfeeling. It is about emotional sovereignty. It is about understanding the boundary between his inner world and yours. You can have compassion for his suffering, for it is a profound suffering to be so disconnected from reality, without allowing his suffering to become your own. This detachment is a radical act of self-preservation. It is you, in the quiet of your own mind, choosing peace over his drama, choosing your reality over his fiction. This is the art of letting things be what they are, and letting him be who he is, without needing it to be different for you to be okay. As you cultivate this stoic detachment, you are simultaneously nurturing the growth of your integrated animus. This is the inner warrior, the guardian of your soul. A healthy animus provides structure, clarity, and discernment. It is the part of you that can analyze a situation objectively, without being swept away by a tidal wave of emotion. It is the voice of logic that cuts through the fog of gaslighting and says, the facts do not support this narrative. It builds the container for your soft, feminine, feeling nature to exist safely. A woman with a well-developed animus does not need a man to provide her with a sense of security or direction, because she generates it from within. She is not easily swayed by flattery, nor is she devastated by criticism, because her sense of self is anchored internally. When a man projects onto her, her animus calmly assesses the situation. It recognizes the projection for what it is, a data point about his inner state, not a judgment on her character. It then advises her on the most logical and self-respecting course of action, which is often disengagement. It is the part of you that loves you enough to say no. No, I will not be your mother. No, I will not be your savior. No, I will not be the villain in your story. No, I will not participate in this drama. The awakened animus is your inner sword of truth, and with it, you sever the energetic cords of projection and reclaim your sovereignty. Ultimately, this entire journey is about turning the gaze inward. For so long, you have been focused on his gaze, what he sees, what he thinks, how he perceives you. The ultimate liberation comes when his gaze becomes irrelevant. The central project of your life becomes the cultivation of a self-worth so deep and unshakable that it acts as a psychic shield. When you truly know who you are, in all your light and shadow, you are no longer a blank canvas. You are a fully rendered masterpiece, complete unto yourself. A man's attempt to paint over you becomes a futile and slightly absurd exercise. His praise does not inflate you, and his criticism does not deflate you, because you are no longer deriving your sense of value from an external source. You have become your own source. This is the essence of individuation. You are no longer half of a whole, searching for your missing piece in another. You are a complete circle, and you engage with others from a place of wholeness, not need. You choose relationships that are mirrors, not projections, relationships where two whole individuals reflect and enhance each other's light, rather than one individual using the other to cast shadows. The peace that comes from this state of being is profound. The world can rage, men can project, storms can gather, but within your inner citadel, you remain serene, anchored in the immutable truth of your own soul. You begin to move through the world differently. The frantic energy of seeking validation is replaced by a calm, grounded presence. You listen more than you speak, not from fear, but from a place of genuine curiosity and discernment. Your silence is no longer a void for others to fill, but a rich, fertile space that you curate and control. It is a sanctuary where your intuition can be heard, where you can connect with your own deeper wisdom. You realize that the men who were drawn to your emptiness are no longer attracted to you. Your self-possession is a silent repellent to those who seek a canvas. Instead, you begin to attract a different kind of energy. You attract men who are on their own path of individuation, who have done their own shadow work, and who are capable of seeing you in your entirety. They are not intimidated by your wholeness, they are inspired by it. They do not need you to complete them, they want to share their completeness with you. The dynamics of attraction shift from a wounded, codependent dance to a conscious, respectful partnership. You no longer mistake intensity for intimacy or drama for passion. You value peace, not because it is boring, but because you understand it is the highest form of strength, the natural state of a soul that is finally at home with itself. This journey changes the very nature of your emotional landscape. The desperate need for a man to understand you dissolves. You understand yourself, and that becomes enough. The terror of being abandoned is replaced by the quiet confidence that you can never be separated from your own inner home, your citadel. You learn to self-soothe, to parent your own inner child, to provide the safety and validation you once outsourced to others. This is the great alchemical secret, turning the lead of emotional dependency into the gold of self-sovereignty. You look back at the men who projected onto you, who raged at the phantoms they saw in your silence, and you feel not anger, but a distant, quiet compassion. You see them as they are, men trapped in a prison of their own minds, fighting battles with ghosts from their past. You see that their treatment of you was never a verdict on your worth, but simply a symptom of their own unhealed sickness. And with that realization comes the final release. You are no longer a victim of their psychic drama. You are a conscious observer who chose to exit the theater. You chose to stop auditioning for a role in a play that was never about you. You chose the sacred peace of your own reality over the chaotic fiction of someone else's. The woman who has traversed this path embodies a quiet power. She does not announce her worth, she simply is. Her presence is her statement. She is not hardened or bitter from her experiences, she is softened by wisdom, made resilient by her journey into the depths of both her own psyche and the human condition. She has faced the projections of others and the shadows within herself and has emerged whole. Her silence is no longer an empty canvas. It is a full space, brimming with self-knowledge, inner peace, and a deep, abiding love for the woman she has fought to become. She has learned that the most profound relationship she will ever have is the one with herself, and from the strength of that bond, all other healthy connections are born. She understands that her energy is a precious resource, not to be wasted on convincing others to see her, but to be invested in creating a life that is a true and beautiful reflection of her own soul. This is the final destination of the journey of individuation, a state of serene wholeness, of unshakable inner peace. It is the freedom that comes from knowing that your value is not a question to be answered by another, but a truth to be inhabited by you. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.